Hello, everyone. I think we're live. This has been a little while since I've done one of these live streams. So yeah, forgive me if anything goes wrong. I've been really looking forward to getting back into these, and I'm extremely excited to have our guest today, who is Shashi. Shashi and I actually first met through the Front End Mentor community, which is really cool. Shashi's been helping people out with code reviews. He's even mentored kind of one-on-one a few members, which is absolutely amazing. And Shashi, I'd love you to do a little intro of yourself so that you can dive into a bit more detail about your background.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I just want to say thank you for this platform as well. I know it's helped so many people, and it's going to continue to help many more.
Thank you.
So myself, I am Shashi Lo. I'm a senior UX engineer at Microsoft. I work on the pricing calculator team. We build an estimation tool to estimate how much your services may cost you. And so we work with many different teams to kind of figure out their calculations and how a user will be charged for that. And so it's there's a lot of intertwining happening, but it's pretty complex. Other than that, I am pretty active on Twitter or X. I try to help people where I can when I have available time to mentor them, to review their portfolios, review the code, answer questions. I definitely want to be that one of those honest voices that will give you constructive criticism, so that you can grow and understand that the things that you have needs improving, because everybody needs somebody to be honest with you and be like, oh, this is okay, but we can do this way better. Other than that, Matt, thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to share the knowledge that is stuck in my head for everybody.
Amazing. No, it's great to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be a lot of value to the community. The topic of this talk and this chat is very much around kind of breaking into tech. And as many people here may know at the moment, it is quite a crowded market, and there are still definitely things that you can do to put yourself ahead of other people and to really make yourself stand out in the crowd. So before we take any questions in the chat, and if you do have a question in the chat, please do feel free to just ask it. I've got a few questions lined up for Shashi, but at the same time, we will be absolutely taking questions from the chat as well. So if you've got anything on your mind, anything that you would like to hear Shashi's advice on, then please do feel free to just start asking questions, and then we'll get to them as we can. So first of all, obviously, this is about journeys into tech and kind of how to break in. It would be great to just start off, Shashi, with your journey into tech and how you, first of all, kind of found your first footings, and then all the way through to today, where you're a senior engineer at Microsoft.
Yeah, I would say it's very similar and different at the same time compared to today's market. I started back in 2006. People always ask me, like, how did you start and all this stuff? And I'm like, well, I actually had a passion for development. I really enjoyed modifying my MySpace and Asian Avenue page. You have this like CSS and JavaScript that's wide open. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. You can do, make all these things happen. And it turned into like forums where people have conversations and things like that. And then I was like, you know what? I want to start like building websites. And so I went to an art school to get my associate's degree for web development. And coming out of school, I have no experience. So I had to apply everywhere and to everything. And it was a struggle because you just feel like you're not good enough, and you feel like the work you have that you built from school should be able to get you an interview or a job at least, and it wasn't. It took a while, or I mean, it took 3 months for me. So but those 3 months felt like it was an extremely long time. And so I got an internship to get the ball rolling, right? Obviously, I didn't want an internship. I wanted a full-time job and salaried and everything. But because nothing was coming in, I felt like, you know what, let's take this and continue to look. And so it was great because it got me going. And then from there, I went on to work for small web firms. And then I moved on to work for agencies. And then I left to become a software engineer. and that is where it leads me to is today. So at Microsoft, how did I get that job, right? Um, to be honest, because I have a lot of experience now, I was able to apply, and I got a message on LinkedIn from the hiring manager himself. He wanted to interview me, and so we got the ball rolling. And as we were just conversating and stuff like that, it felt like it fit really well. I think the one thing or a couple of things that really helped me was the previous year, I had been trying to look for a new place to go to, and so I had interviewed for like hundreds of jobs, and that process and that prep really helped me because interviewing is a skill in its own, and until you do it more and more, right, you won't get as good at it. And so I got really, I feel like I improved a lot. And for any soft skill questions, I was able to like, oh, I know I have this scenario plucked out already. I'm going to bring it in and talk about it in a certain format. I use the star format. And so I practiced that, and I practiced that at home. And just every interview I went to that I could not answer as a soft skill or technical, I brought it back and then I completed it myself, or I went over it myself and went over it with my wife as well to say, hey, does this make sense? Like all this stuff. And so I would fine tune my answers and my solutions so that the next time, if a similar question came up, I would be able to answer it. And so that process itself, like it's a grueling process, but it will help your career because as you do more of them, you'll get better at it. And I'm hoping that we don't do too many of them because we just stay at that job for an extremely long time. But the
Mhm.
reality is, it will happen, right? It will happen. You either get laid off or you are looking for a new job, and you're going to have to interview for a new company or somebody else. So my whole journey has been really interesting because I feel like it's a big spectrum of working for the small mom and pop places, working for the super fast paced agency, and then slowing down to work for a software engineering companies where there's a lot of process involved, a lot of red tape and all that stuff. And so
Yeah.
understanding and going through that whole entire like industry of different types of companies, I think has really honed me well for to be adaptable and to go into many roles.
That's amazing. It's I think there's a really, really good point there that specifically interviewing is a skill in its own right. And you get some people in the industry who kind of maybe throw out sort of a handful of applications, maybe get one or two interviews, and then kind of really get disheartened that maybe they didn't get the job. But interviewing really is a skill in its own right, and you can
Yeah,
only get good at any skill by just practicing over and over and over again.
100%.
And so that's a huge one. Also, you mentioned the STAR framework.
Mhm.
I personally don't know what that is myself, and maybe some others in the chat don't know it. So I'd be really interested to hear more.
Yeah, so it's a certain format that you bring a scenario in, and what it stands for is situation, task, action, and then result. So first you talk about the situation, right? What is the situation? Because there'll be a softball question saying, "Hey, how did you deal with conflict at work?" Right? And so you're like, "Okay, I had to find a situation that deals with conflict and
Yeah.
bring it in and discuss about it, and then talk about what the tasks were and how that conflict occurred, right? And then what actions did you make, and then finally what was the results of this. The thing that well, obviously this makes a lot of sense, is you want to find a situation that had a positive result. That you should not find one that had a negative result, because I did that once and I was like, oh yeah, I did this, and then I gave a suggestion for this, and then the interviewer said, okay, what came out of it? And I said, nothing. They're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's not good. Next time I'm gonna do better, right? So that's where the repetition comes in. Okay, next time I'm throwing that out, finding a better situation to bring in.
Yeah.
And so then, because having that formality when you're asked any kind of question, the interviewee can tell that you're organized, that you're you're prepared, right?
Yeah.
If you just answer it out of the blue and just brings up ran things up, it's nice and all, but to have a foundation and a process that you have built together, it really sets yourself apart.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And they can interviewers can tell as well. Like
Mhm.
when you're sitting across from someone, whether that's in real life or virtual, you can tell if someone's prepped. And you can tell if someone's like ran through these scenarios
Yeah.
before and really thought it through. And you can guarantee that the person that has prepped is going to be kind of one step ahead of the person who hasn't prepped. So yeah, preparation, star framework. I didn't know about that, so that's a very, very good one. Thank you for that. We have a question from Jackie Yu. What was the interview process like when you first joined Microsoft versus now? Is it more or less the same?
Is it more so when I first got into the industry and then how it's different when I got into Microsoft? I think that's what the question is, right?
I think it might be like, how has it evolved since you've been in Microsoft?
Oh,
So kind
oh,
of new people coming in.
oh, got
But
it.
let's cover both bases.
Okay. We'll do this one first.
Yeah,
I would say that right now it's still very similar. Big companies have similar processes where they have an HR person reach out to you first to kind of check if you're sane, right? And if you align and everything. And then after that, it will possibly be the hiring manager. In this case, in Microsoft, it was the hiring manager contacted me. We talked. We did an hour conversation, and then things checked out. And then I would move on to the final round, which was a coding challenge, a lot of soft skill questions, and then another one with an individual outside of the organization that just to kind of ask a bunch of different questions to kind of see if you check out as well. And
yeah,
so that's kind of been the process. Other bigger companies or other even startups too have done it this way, where it's really fast. They do an HR check to see if you're sane. They give you a technical. It's either going to be a live coding challenge or a take home. Most likely a live coding challenge, and then you do that. If you don't pass that, you're done. Right? It's simple as that. So they don't waste a lot of time. If you pass that, then you move on to the final rounds where it is soft skill questions, a system design, and then talking to hiring manager as well, and maybe some executive as well. And so
yeah,
that's been a process. But I will tell you this too: when people want to interview me, unless if it's like one of the FANG companies, one of the huge companies, I already know kind of what the process is because it's all over the internet, right? What they do, the algorithms they give you. If I ask them, if it's a non-FANG company, I'll ask them like, "Hey, what is your interview process? What kind of technical are you going to give me?" If they tell me, "Oh, we're going to give you an algorithm question," I'm going to say, "I'm sorry, but I'm going to pass. Like, I don't do well in those, so I don't want to like fail and then like be disappointed and stuff. So I'm just going to stop right here, unless if
yeah,
there's another option." And a lot of them have given me an alternative. They're like, okay, well, I guess we can do a take home challenge or we can do something else. And
yeah,
they will give you the alternative if they feel like you're a good candidate, right? But if you're just a number, then they're just going to say, yep, okay, no, thank you. But for
yeah,
me, because of the experience I've had, I've been able to alter that and they've been able to give me alternative solutions so that we can still have a technical challenge opposed to like live coding or whatnot. Because for myself, I'm not the best at live coding, like algorithm questions. Like it's just a lot.
yeah,
It's really tough unless if you leak code like every single day and you're really good at it. Awesome. But I don't do that. I just build solutions. I do the work, right? And so giving me something that I have a higher chance to succeed in and being able to show you what I'm good at, I think that's a win-win for both.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting that you've actually kind of pushed back a little bit in the interview process and asked them to come up with a new solution to test your technical ability. That's and that's something that, yeah, definitely like people shouldn't shy away from. And because a lot of companies do use this sort of data structure
Yeah.
algorithm, technical based challenge, which isn't really an indicator at all of what you can actually do on the job. And especially for especially actually when you get to junior level as well, it's like even less relevant
Yeah.
because it's just like it's just what can you build, like what can you do on the day-to-day basis. So yeah, no, that's really interesting. That's really good advice.
Yeah, and then I'll answer the one that I altered, the question I altered. How is
Yeah.
the interview process back in when I first started different from today? Right, we talked about the process today. Back then, it was so easy. they they would talk to you, right, and then they would give you a little take home, or you would go on site and you would just like work a little component or something, like do some CSS or something simple. I mean, obviously, like when I first started, it wasn't software engineering; it was more web based, but they didn't challenge you that hard. It was more conversational. Once you got past that, even if I failed, like I failed like my first job at the web firm that I went to, after my 2 internships, I I thought I failed. And I was like, oh man, I didn't do good. Like I messed up here, did this and that. And then I emailed them and I said, hey, you know what? It's been like 4 weeks. I'm just gonna, like, if it's not gonna happen, that's okay. I'm just gonna move on. And then the CEO emailed me back and said, hey, hold on. Like just hold on. Let me send you an email. And then he officially sent me the congratulations email. And I was like, what?
Nice.
Okay. Thought I
Yeah.
failed. But no, it was because they were like, no, because we can tell that you're a team player. We know that we can work well with you, and it seems like you're adaptable and stuff like that. And this, your skills, you're a junior. We know that. We know that we can train you and coach you. And so that is why we want to hire you. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And I feel like that's been a little bit lost in today's market. Is they want people that can do the work and do it without holding their hand and all that stuff. Because there's so many, it's a market that's filled with so many candidates nowadays.
Mm.
So I understand that, but also like you need to give individuals a chance, right? I know an individual that I help personally. I looked at their resume and their portfolio, and it was not good. But when I looked at their personal project, it was so complex. It was like not a junior engineer's type of project. And the more we dug into it, we're like, whoa, like this is actually very good. And then
Yeah.
the more I heard him speak and describe his project, I was like, you are like, why are you not getting any callbacks? Like, you're actually a really good candidate. It's because people are not giving these individuals chances, and that's where the market has come today. Is you have to have a really good portfolio, an aesthetic pleasing portfolio, and a resume that hits a lot of marks, right? And there's so many things now that you have to do to stand out, opposed to back then where it's I could have like a Word doc resume and still get
Yeah.
an interview with zero experience. So it has definitely changed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's changed. I mean, I started in 2014, and it's yeah, it's changed a lot since then as well. We'll do a couple. I can see a flood of questions coming in, which is
Okay.
absolutely amazing. And there's a couple that we'll do a little bit sort of more quick fire on these couple. We have one from Mazen Hassan. Do you think applying for jobs with no experience but relevant project could weaken our acceptance opportunity?
Um, I don't think so, because I will say this. I've said this to many people too, that experience is gold, right? When you have experience, it will take you so much further. When you have no experience, it is very difficult. And any kind of projects you have with no experience is better. But as you have time to progress and make better projects, replace those old, the projects that are that everybody has, like the to do app, right? Like
Yeah.
replace that with something that is more personal and whatnot, or even like freelance or going to find some pro bono work that will help a lot. But I would say like having zero experience is probably the most difficult thing to do. Definitely look into like open source contributions, doing some freelance and all that to give yourself some experience, because a little experience in that area is better than none.
Massively. Yeah, yeah, it really does. It's another way to make you stand out. If you do
Mhm.
have that little tiny bit of experience, then
Yeah.
obviously you're one step up from someone who has absolutely no experience. Whether that is in some countries, obviously, like you can take in the US, for example, where you are, internships and things. We don't necessarily have internships too much over here in the
Yeah.
UK. But just finding those little opportunities that you can do to get your foot in the door somewhere, and get that experience, and then definitely put that front and center on your application for sure. Nice, amazing. And next one, a bit more quick fire again. That last one was perfect. So would you say we need to go to college in today's market, and do you think web development will remain around for the next years to
Mm.
come?
I think this is a question many people ask all the time. I would say this. I am for going to college, um, if you have the time, right? And you already know you're going to be in debt, right? You already know that. And so if you're okay with that, I say that is because you'll build that structure, right? When you're doing it at a boot camp or on your own, you don't know like a good solid structure to put yourself in, a learning process, design systems, right? All these things that they're gonna take you through. You'll come out of school and knowing all of that. But if you don't have the time or you don't have the money, right? Or you have limited funds and you want to go to boot camp and stuff like that, that is totally acceptable too. But just know that the road is going to be difficult. Either way, it's going to be difficult. But I would say the self-taught route is the most difficult, unless if you find yourself a community that can help you and guide you, or a mentor that will truly do that for you, like walk you through a lot of stuff, be there for you. It's going to take a lot of time. I know of a handful of self-taught developers that have fully converted and have a full-time job, but it took them 2 to 3 years to fully do that, right, on their own. And it feels like, going to boot camp for 12 weeks or so after you would get a job. Nowadays, it's flooded with so many candidates. You go there for 12 weeks. There's already 30 people that did it 2 years ago, and they still don't have a job. So you're already 2 years behind, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it's an ever growing process that you have to figure out ways to improve. How does your brain work? How does it learn? How is it going to level up the fastest way possible? Obviously, quality matters too, but it's always going to be a grind, right? And then will web development be around for many years to come? Okay, I'll tell you what. Everybody thought PHP was dead like 10 years ago. It's not dead. It's very well alive, because WordPress, Drupal, Magento, those PHP frameworks have been around for a long time and they're still very active. How do I know that? Because I was in that world about 10, 15 years ago. That's what I started with. And I've evolved outside of that. But it's still going to be there because I believe the statistic was like over 90, I don't know, 90, I'm just going to throw out the number. Over 90% of the websites out there are built on PHP. And most of that is WordPress because it's fast, easy to get up. And who needs, those individuals to make these sites better? You, right? And so it's great to learn like the great like new stack like Next and React and Vue and all that stuff. But think about it. There's so many projects out there and sites out there built on PHP. And in order to like really break into tech, you have to find what you want to do, but also like what is your time frame, right? Like if I need to find something quick, there's a bunch of freelance opportunities in WordPress development. Okay, I'm gonna start my career there. That doesn't mean I'm gonna end there. That just means I'm going to start there.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. And yeah, with web development remaining around for the next years to come, I mean, we see this question a lot in the community. Obviously, a lot of people, especially around sort of AI tooling and all this kind of thing, a little bit worried about getting into web development. But is very much kind of assistance rather than replacements.
Yeah. So I came from a different angle, but I totally understand the AI part, and I can speak on that too because Microsoft is really big on AI,
Yeah.
right? And every team right now is building something with AI. The way I see it is that AI may replace some low level jobs, like jobs that are just manually calculating numbers or something else. But in the development world, no. We're building solutions that are helping developers, that are going to make you more efficient, that's going to allow you to write code faster. Where I see is it's going to make you more efficient to do more, and then allow your team that to go and complete the tasks that are in the backlog. Because right now my team, we have like 5 projects, right? But we have 10 in the backlog because we can't get to them. AI will help us quickly get these done and then move on to the next ones, opposed to no, fully replacing developers. No, I don't see that happening. I see it more so as a tool that we're all going to use to help us improve, and especially for junior engineers too. Like ChatGPT has been a game changer. Where, hey, I don't know this. I have an issue with this piece of code. Can you explain it to me? Right? It does a pretty good job at it.
Yeah.
And for unit testing, like I don't like writing unit tests, but GitHub Copilot has done a pretty decent job at getting me 80% there. Like it'll read my
Nice.
file and it will say, okay, write me a test. And it writes me a test. I'm like, hey, actually, I just have to tweak a few things and it's good to go. Opposed to me spending 30 minutes to an hour constructing it, getting it going. It spins it up within seconds, and then I could tweak it and get it going. So AI is only going to improve and it's only going to get better, but I feel like it's going to be a part of our jobs to use it as a tool to help us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just another layer of abstraction, right? Where it's just like you've got various programming languages. This is another interface that you can use to talk to a computer, and who knows where it will go. I'm extremely hopeful that it will actually be hopefully break down some of the barriers with some companies who might be hesitant to hire juniors, because actually it means people with less experience are much more productive from day one.
Yeah.
So if you're competent using AI tooling and you know how to leverage it in your workflow to build projects and to increase efficiency, then you're putting yourself in a really good position versus other devs in the market for sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Hayden Kerr has asked, should the focus be on bulk applying for jobs or focusing more on networking through LinkedIn and other channels?
This is a great question. Many people do one or the other, right? And I will tell you this, like networking is probably better than bulk applying, because when you bulk apply, you're cold applying, right? You don't know anybody in that company or whatnot, or sometimes you might, right? But when you network, you build a connection to people from different companies and whatnot, and they will refer you to these jobs, right? It may not happen right away, but when it does happen, it's an easier way for you to get in. I'll tell you a story, okay? Story time. I applied for a position a while back, and it was for a software engineer role using Angular. And I've never used Angular before, but I wanted to learn it. I interviewed with them, with the individual. I did not get the job. I stayed connected with them. I connected with them on LinkedIn. Um, and then when I saw a year later that they were speaking at a local conference, I reached out to them, and I was gonna go to the event, but I something happened. So I messaged him and I said, "Hey, yo, I'm so sorry, but I was gonna come attend your session, but something came up. But hopefully it went well, right?" So we're connected, but we don't talk all the time. But he remembers me because we had done like a full interview cycle and everything. And he's like, "Yeah, it went well, but great that you were trying to apply, try to join." But then he said, "Hey, you know what? Are you still looking for a job?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm leaving, and you would be perfect to replace me. I haven't even told my boss yet, but I think you'd be perfect to replace me. Would you be open for
Nice.
that? And I said, yeah. And so that week I interviewed for them. And then the following week I got the offer right away because he personally referred me as he was leaving. But nobody knew that he didn't even tell anybody yet, right? That he had already accepted another job and stuff like that. But it was because I um, brought up my name in front of him and he remembered me and that he was able to refer me to that position. And I love that job. It was so good. And I got in. Like the interview process, and you have to think about this, right? When you're interviewing for a position, you're probably interviewing 5 to 10 candidates, sometimes, and then you're going through hundreds of applicants, right? For them, they got lucky. They only had to do one. They just
Yeah.
me. I checked out, everything worked out and done, right? Because it's so grueling to go through that process. And if somebody can refer you from your network to a company they work at, or somebody they know at another company, when they refer you, you don't have to bulk apply, right? You might have to wait, and the timing has to be right, just like my timing. But as you build your network, it may not become fruitful right away, but eventually a few of them will turn into something. It will turn into a contract job, a full-time offer, or something else that will garnish you some success, right? So that's why I feel like networking is super important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, are they? It's
Yeah,
networking is huge, but also there's a time and a place for bulk applying. Like maybe kind of trying to not necessarily bulk apply, but like trying to apply in a fast way
yeah,
while also personalizing as much as you can, because it's quite easy. Like when we've hired before, it's very easy to spot a bulk apply versus someone who is actually like knows your company and is really trying to get their foot in the door and
yeah.
impress you.
Yep,
For
totally
sure.
agree.
So yeah, try and personalize it a little bit, everyone. Next one we have Cesar is asking, what do you think about remote jobs? Are they worth it?
Remote jobs are amazing. Are they worth it?
Agreed.
Yes. But I always come back to this, right? I'm always an even kill person. Is it depends on you too. Like for me, I love interacting with people, right? My job is fully remote. And the only interaction I have with developers in person is if I go to a meetup or a conference. I wish that I would be hybrid where I can go in, 1, 2 days a week just to get that personal interaction. Um, when I went to visit the office, the Microsoft office in Seattle, I got to meet many of my coworkers and extended coworkers, and it was awesome. I was like, if I could do this like 2 or 3 days a week, this would be awesome. I would get no work done, but it would be awesome.
Yeah.
But when you're working remote, it's different, right? Like you're doing meetings and then you try to get to know somebody and say, "Oh, I'm busy. I got another meeting." All this stuff. Like my calendar. If you look at my calendar, is jam packed with meetings. I have no time to get to know anybody. I want
Yeah.
to, but I can't because when we're working remotely, they know that hey, you know what? There's no breaks in between. You're just gonna continue to work, 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 work. Um, but the awesome thing is I wake up, I'm at work, I'm done on Friday at 5 p.m. I'm done. I'm at home. I can just go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's we're fully remote at Front End Mentor, and for me, like I absolutely love it, like myself. But it is definitely person dependent, and I love being able to set your own schedule. Kind of, I've got like a 8 a.m. till 11
Yeah.
a.m. and then I take a 2 hour lunch, and then a 1 p.m. till about 6
Oh, nice.
p.m. and then and do that. And remote work, a lot of companies will allow you to have a bit more of a flexible schedule like that as well. So it can play into your lifestyle a lot more. But at the same time, I do find myself talking to my cat a little bit too often, probably. So swings and roundabouts. Next question we have from TECFF. Does being self-taught with projects get you a job?
Um, yeah, it can. I mean, it again, like it as a senior engineer usually says, it depends, right?
Yeah.
um, because self-taught or not, you need projects, right? You need some projects to build. And if you're talking about like individual projects, yes, like we always say, man, I always say, like, use front end mentor as your portfolio projects until you find your own and you build like a capstone project to
Yeah.
replace them. Then do that. But show like the top 3 projects. If you have 10 projects, I'm not gonna look through all 10 of them, Eric. When I'm looking at your resume, that's too many. But if I want to dig in more, give me a link to your GitHub or whatever. I'll find and I'll go dig in more. But feature wise, like give me 3 or 4 of your top projects. And in front end mentor, that's all you have, great. Like we'll go with that. But if you have 3 front end mentor projects, but you have one personal project that really stands out, like put that one first while the other ones are last, because this platform gives you that opportunity. I always tell people like that don't design well and all that stuff. I always tell them, I always direct them to front end mentor, because they, y'all have some of the greatest like industry designs that you can practice with, and some challenges that are real, like it's kind of the same challenges we have at like a corporate world, right?
Yeah.
And by showcasing that, that goes a long way. I had an individual, she built a project, a side project, and when I looked at it, I was like, this is very basic. And then she was like, yeah, somebody told me just to go build another project. I said, hey, hold on here, this project works. This project is basic. Why don't you fine tune it and make it better? And then you can showcase the process of you having a basic project to something that has more structure, has unit testing, has TypeScript now added everything. And now you go from this baby project to this like fine-tuned software application. That's a
Yeah.
good like thing to have, opposed to going on to building something else where you may spend more time on. Like doing that is going to be even better, because then you're learning. You build something basic and then you upped it up a level to go even further.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, is this project going to catch someone's attention? And is this like on a quick glance as well? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people, a lot of resumes, they'll click through to a portfolio, they'll skim it, and then like a lot of the time, if there's a lot of applicants, which especially for entry level
Yeah.
jobs, there's like
Yeah.
hundreds and
There's
thousands.
so many.
So yeah, like you need to have that one, like that one project, especially capstone project, like you were saying. And if that's personal, then that definitely is amazing. And if it's front end mentor, then that's great too. But yeah, if you do have that personal project, then really push that, and also be ready to talk through it as well, because
Yeah.
a lot of the time
100%.
in interview processes, when you've got projects in your portfolio, part of the interview in a lot of companies is, here's this project, talk me through some of your technical decisions that you made during this project, and make sure that you can talk fluently about your code when you're building these things out. Really review why you've made these decisions as well. Amazing. Next question we have: how do you land a job in front end when you're transitioning from another kind of engineering, especially when you don't want to cut off and jump in full time into front end, but rather need a smooth transition? So I guess transitioning out of an old job and into front end.
Yeah, this is probably one of the hardest things, and I know a lot of people doing this where they currently are at an industry working full time and trying to break into tech, right? And how do you transition smoothly, or how do you even transition at all? I think that the best thing to do is try to take a step back and find commonality between what you're doing now and in the tech industry. What I say is a tech industry is, it doesn't have to be development, right? It could be something else. I just talked to an individual. They were wanting to do development and front end and all that stuff. And I put them through this process of planning for a project. So they built this low-level documentation of the technologies they choose, how they're going to build it, yada yada, right? Like the grueling process of like nobody wants to do, because you got to document all this stuff. I hate documentation. um, but and talking to him, he was like, I loved it. I loved, researching. I loved writing it up, and I loved presenting it. And I was like, "Are you hearing yourself?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "You loved this process. Everybody else hated this process, but you did." And I said, Have you thought about being a technical documentation writer or a documentation engineer where you go into a company and you do the developer experience, right? You build the
Mm.
documentation, you build the components, and you explain it, you create videos on the software. And he's like, I didn't know that existed. And I was like, yeah, it does. And a lot of companies are doing nowadays. And then he said this. He said, yeah, that works very well with my um my English degree that I got. And I was like, there you go. If we were able to connect those two together, we might have found this sooner, that you can still do some development, but you can use your English major, combining that with technology and figuring out a path of smooth transition that you can do, because it's even harder for you to become a software engineer if you are just starting, right? It's going to take so much more time. But if you already have an English major and you've been practicing that for a while, if you can find a role that you can transition to, then we can have a path for you to start that role, and mocking that role. And then eventually, as people see you building a technical documentation, using Storybook or going to GitHub and creating like a huge long list of a wiki that's very organized and well explained, that to me is more than, it's going to help you transition better. But also, this individual had the passion for it, and that passion is going to take you further in your career than going to development and then pulling your hair out because of a bug that you take like weeks to figure out, and you're like, I'm done with this, like I can't do this anymore. Opposed to me, I love what I do. A bug that takes me a week or two, I'm like, no, I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna figure it out, I want to find this solution. And when I do, I'm like, okay, on to the next one, right? I've had
Yeah.
many other individuals say, oh, I hate this process, I'm done after 5 o'clock, I'm so burned out. But for myself, I'm like, I'm not done, I'm gonna keep going. If it's not figuring out this bug, I'm gonna look at some new technologies, I'm gonna read a blog or listen to a podcast to continue to advance my career.
Yeah. Nice. We've got a good chunk of questions, and I can see that we're running out of time. And I know you've got a hard stop, so we will go a little bit more quick fire
Okay.
for the next few, and then I've got a couple of questions that I lined up as well that I'd love
Okay.
love you to dive
Let's
into as
go.
well. Amazing. So, what is your opinion about open source projects, especially for someone with no experience?
Mm.
Looking for a job, but companies reject them in the first stage because of lack of experience.
Open source is a very good alternative to experience. The reason why is because a lot of these open source projects, you have to follow a process, and process is huge. That's one hidden skill that nobody talks about, is understanding a process, right? If I bring you on, you have no idea how to use Git as a team, then I'm gonna have to like walk you through a lot of stuff. But if you go through open source, you have to do pull requests, you have to do a code review, you have to alter your code to match those comments, and then you have to push it through, and it has to be approved and all that, right? And then you also have to find tickets that you are going to work on, and find a solution for that, and go through that whole process. Like that little bit on its own is huge, because when you're building a project on your own, you're not doing that. You're just building and going, building and going, building and going, right? Like you're not gonna say, oh hey, can somebody else review this? No, it's like, no, I want to get this out there, I want to see the changes right away. So
Yeah.
that process alone is going to be huge for you, because that is experience at that point.
Yeah, it's experience, and it's showing that you know how to collaborate on a project as well, which is
Yeah.
another way to set yourself apart. Like building personal projects by yourself using like basic Git commands, git add, commit, push, fine, that's great. But at the same time, learning to work on a project, learning more complex Git workflows, that's like collaboration is a huge thing that's going to set you apart from other people as well. So yeah, I'm completely with you on that. Nice. Amazing, Hassan. What's your take on companies asking for a take-home test as part of their evaluation process?
I'm okay with it, because I'm okay with it. But again, like in our previous conversation, if you're not okay with it, ask them for alternative, right? Be like, hey, I would prefer, I don't have time for a take home. Is there an alternative? Can I do some live coding? Right? Because there are alternatives in a hiring process. And I always say this too, is if they're not willing to adjust according to your life, then when you get that job, they're not willing to adjust to your life, right? And so if
Yeah.
they're willing to do it now, that's a good sign that they're willing to work with you. And anytime you have an emergency or something happens, you know that your company has your back.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that advice. Next one. Fahad is asking, what does it require to take the leap from a startup environment to a mid-segment or larger companies? How to prepare and get your resume shortlisted?
Yeah, so startup. I think Fahan knows that startup world is very different. Is very fast. I've been to two startups, and they're very different from a software engineering company, mid or large company. But the skills that you build from it can translate really easily. You just kind of slow down and go through the process, stuff like that, right? So, a requirement to jump, I would say there is no hard requirement, but skill, right? Understanding the skill. Depending on the company you go to, they're going to look for certain skills. In a startup, you're going to do so many things. You're going to do DevOps, you're going to do the development, you're going to do the continuous integration part of it. And you're also going to build the component library, right? You're going to do so many things. Whereas a mid to large company, you're going to be more focused. Hey, all I need you to do is be a functional engineer and interact with the API and work with the data. That's it. So that mindset has to then be like, okay, that's all I do. Yes, that's all you do, and you're gonna be really good at it.
Yeah.
To get your resume on a short list, it goes back to networking. Network with companies and people that you want to get into, right? And build that relationship. Like, it's not like using them, but it's networking. It's difficult because like if you want to come to Microsoft, right? And you come and connect with me, comment on all my Twitter posts, all that stuff, and LinkedIn, and then we build a relationship. And then eventually you might say, "Hey, Shashi, I found this role at Microsoft. Can you refer me to it?" I'll be like, "Yeah, I'll refer you to it. Of course I will." Um, but if you come at me coldly and say, "Hey, you work at Microsoft, can you refer me to that?" I'll be like, I'm sorry, but I won't do that. Like
Yeah.
unless we build that relationship and we've have a standing conversation, whatever, then it's easier for these individuals to refer you. Because yes, I do get a referral bonus if you get hired. That's a bonus for me. But also, it takes time for me to refer you. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm just gonna put this in and it's done. It's a little
Mhm.
process to do that. And oftentimes, when you refer someone to directly to a team or whatnot, that manager may not like if it's a bad referral, that individual may not trust your referrals in the future. So
Yeah.
when I do it, I want to make sure like, okay, this person is going to be a good referral, and I know that there's going to be a high chance for this to happen.
Yeah. Um, Absolutely. Yeah. Referrals and sort of warm intros, building that network, building those relationships is massive. Another one, dedicated 2 years to learning to code. What has helped me land an interview with a company for a junior job? If not, what route can I take? So 2 years without
Mhm.
getting into the first role, kind of advice for them.
Yeah, I this comes down to like the quality of the 2 years, right? Like you could dedicate yourself for 2 years, but what is the quality? Like at first, in your beginning, anything works, but after that, what have you done? Have you have you gotten feedback on your work and all that? Because I have an individual that I was helping right after 1 year. They were like, "I'm stuck. Like I've been doing this. I have no offers, whatever." And I look at the work, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's because of the work you have. It's not good enough. It's not good enough for people to look at because there's other candidates out there that have better quality work than you. Here's what I suggest you to do, right? Go do this, and then hopefully that will help you and it will jumpstart you. It took another year, but it did land them a job.
Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend is finding a mentor or somebody that's willing to review your work and what you have to fine tune what you need to do because after 2 years it is heartbreaking that you don't have a job yet, but it may be that you need to fine tune some things to get that interview or to get that role. and hopefully this individual can help you get there, because I'm pretty sure if I looked at it, I can identify a few things to help you. And then I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but it's a better chance, right? It's
Yeah,
gonna be a better chance for you to at least get an interview.
for sure. Nice. Amazing. And then maybe a quick fire one on this one. Do online certificates such as Coursera, Udemy, CS50 improve your resume for self-taught devs?
Does it improve your resume? I'm torn on this. Like for me, I would say no, because like Matt was saying, if I have 100 candidates and I'm going through this and I see that this is the only experience you have, opposed to somebody else that has real world experience, that real world experience is going to supersede this already. But if this is the only experience you have, then yes, like put it down, because that's all you have until you can replace it again, right? It's always this incrementally process where this is all you have, then yeah, use it, put it down. But if it's not all, then as you improve and get better, do that. But don't stop here. Like do some open source contributions, go find some freelance, go do something. Like I always tell people, even the 100 devs says this too, is there's people in your life that need something. Go ask your mom, go ask your dad, go ask your aunt, your uncle that owns a business, or go ask a friend that does something and say, hey, what do you need? I can build something for you, right?
Yep.
That is experience working for a direct client. And that's better than going through some of these certificates. These certificates may help you build a foundation, but experience is gold.
Yeah, exactly. It's certificates kind of validate theoretical knowledge, but it's what you do with that theoretical knowledge and going off like what you can create, what you can build, projects that you've created, things like this, front-end mentor, personal projects, client projects, anything like that is definitely above certificates for sure. Really like quick question on my side. We're running out of time, I know, but if you could say a kind of top 3 to 5 tips that you would recommend for people to stand out from the crowd in the hiring process or application process even, what would those 3 to 5 be?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, it starts with your resume, right? And your portfolio. To stand out, you have to give yourself a chance, right? That is the first thing you need to do. My resume is geared towards UX engineering, right? So it's designed. It's not a Word doc with just a simple text and columns. It's actually designed like a website. It's designed with columns and text and colors and everything. And I've received a lot of feedback that it is a very well designed resume. And for me, hearing that, that means that it stood out. I may not have the most experience, or I may not be the best candidate, but it gave me a chance, right? And I can tell you that gave me a chance, and I didn't get a lot of jobs, but it gave me a chance. So that's what you need, is that opportunity, right? And then after that, I would say is your portfolio. I do portfolio review Fridays, not often, but I still do them. And I've seen so many portfolios. I will give you this: about 90% of portfolios are not good enough. The reason why I say that is because um, we feel like we have to design and develop our own portfolio. And as developers, we're not good designers, and we're just not good. Like there's some individuals that are good, but that's very rare, right? So instead of doing that, I always say go get a template, and then get that template, use it, or fine tune that template to your liking. Because if you get past that point of your resume, now it's your portfolio. I would look at it for 5 seconds. If it's not aesthetically pleasing, I'm gone. Why?
Yep.
I have to go through hundreds and hundreds of portfolios. I'm gonna choose the ones that I want to take my time to review, and go through them. And I said this earlier. My schedule is jam packed already. If I have to interview someone and spend time to look at your portfolio and your work, it's got to be worth my time. right? And the company's time. And so all these things matter. And as you get through, your projects are going to matter, right? The quality of your projects will matter. Again, using front end mentor projects, if that's all you have, totally fine. But fine tune them. You do not have to create more if you don't want to. You can fine tune them and ask somebody to review your code so they can give you suggestions on how to improve things. Because quality code is better than quantity. Like the more you have doesn't matter to me. But if you have one super solid project that looks great, that has a lot of functionality, that has a lot of bells and whistles, and it is solid, means more to me than 10 projects that are just mediocre, right? It's gonna stand out. And so those are the things I would say are the best things to have to kind of garnish you to get that interview.
Yeah, yeah. No, those are all absolutely brilliant tips, and you've given a lot of excellent advice for how people can set themselves apart in the market. And I hope for everyone that this has been extremely valuable. And hopefully in the future we'll have Shashi back on. Like there's so many questions. I didn't get to ask any of mine hardly because there were so many good questions in the chat. So
I mean, Matt, if you have time, I still have a little time, but if we have a
oh
hard stop,
really?
that's totally fine too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was you that had the hard stop. Yeah, I
I
can keep going.
did, but something got canceled, so I'm good to go.
Amazing. All right. Well, let's carry on then.
Okay.
That's absolutely brilliant. Feel free to carry on asking questions in the chat for anyone who's got any questions. We have one from Tiffany Clark asking, is there a way to contact you, and how do you mentor aspiring developers? How can I be a part of it as well?
Yeah. Best way to contact me is through Twitter or on LinkedIn. I will post those somewhere, but on
We can put them in the Discord. We'll put them
oh
in the
yeah,
Discord.
I could do that.
Yeah.
And so I'll
Yeah.
just say it out loud. Shashi Who Codes is on Twitter, and then just Shashi Lo on LinkedIn. And how do I mentor aspiring developers, and how can you be a part of it? I'll be honest with you. Um, I only select a few at a time, and I don't do it often because I'm so busy. Um, and the way I mentor them is truly allowing them to learn. Like the theory of like I'm not gonna give you the fish. I'm gonna teach you how to fish, because that's the only way you're going to learn. If I do everything for you, you will never learn, and you'll never do that, because when you get a real job, they're going to expect you to do the same thing, right? So to build that mindset now is better, because then it's with someone that, yeah, it's not your boss or anything, right? But I can guide you through that process and help you get there. Like we're doing a side project right now with my Discord, and this comes up a lot where it's like, hey, can like we just do this? And I say, go research it. I know the answer, but I want you to find out why you're doing this way. They come back, they give me an answer, and I say, okay, now that you know, now I'll tell you everything I know about it because you've done your initial research and all that. And so then it gives them more ammo to understand how to do this and how to plan and stuff like that.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah, we can we'll post all kind of relevant links for you, Shashi, in the Discord, so that everyone has an easy way to contact you and reach out to you. And obviously you're in our Discord as well. So so there's that too. We've talked about, like, during this time, we've talked about some mistakes that people make. Like you were saying, a lot of the portfolios that you review in your Portfolio Review Fridays on Twitter are just like, a lot of them just actually aren't like the quality that you might need to really like make a good impression. You've also talked about a lack of preparation during interviews. So you were saying when you got the job at Microsoft, one of the things you did was just rehearse the question, like go over questions, and like all throughout the interviews, if you had been to an interview and you answered a question poorly from your point of view, then you went back after the interview and rehearsed it to make it kind of better and make it more fluid, so that the next time if you went into an interview and someone else asked that similar question, you were ready to go. What other mistakes would you say beyond those two that you see as the most common mistakes that developers typically make when they're trying to break into the industry?
I would say one common one very common mistake is that when you start off and you go through a boot camp or you build one project, right, that you think
Mm,
you're good enough. And I'll be honest with that. I had a few individuals that built one front end mentor project, right? And then I said, okay, show me it. And they built an easy one. And I said, okay. And looked at the code and I said, okay, awesome. So are you going to build more? They said, no, I'm going to apply for a job now. And I said, okay, hold on here. I'll be honest with you, this is cool, but it's not there yet. Like you need more.
mm,
Like you need more experience and stuff. Looking at what you have, I probably wouldn't hire you for an internship. And so that means that you need to do more and learn more. Um, it is a grueling process, right? To be a developer and to actually break in, especially with this industry and all the people that's in the market now. But that's what it's going to take is like you to excel and be one of the stars, right? Like I think that's where we have to lower our egos and understand that sometimes we need help, sometimes we need somebody to guide us. um, let's really ensure that what I'm doing is at a like excellent level, because we I mean, it's natural, right? We think we're good enough at whatever we do. We do it one time, we're like, okay, I'm good, right? Same with cooking, right? I'll cook some noodles and stuff and hand make them. Like, okay, next time I'm great. I'm gonna do this, no problem. But then it's like, oh, can you cater this for 100 people? Like, I don't know how to do that. like, like it's the same concept. Like, there you just don't know what's going to come at you, but the more you build, the more you'll learn, which means the more you'll fail, but then you'll learn from it, right? So build, learn, fail, build, learn, fail, like or build, fail, learn. I mean, build, you fail, you learn from it. You build, you fail, you learn from it. The more repetition you have with that, the more you'll like continue to improve, because we can't learn, like our brains, we can learn something quickly. Like I'll go through a tutorial, right? Like I'll do like a really nice tutorial from Kevin Powell or something. I'm like, okay, cool, I watched it, it's really cool. A week later I'll forget it, because our minds don't work that way. Like we need to
yeah.
be building and doing the things to build that muscle memory so that we can memorize it and so that we can implement it anytime. Without that, we will not be able to do that. It's just too difficult.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's easy to be like it's tough because it's a fine balance between sort of people wanting a job now and like being like I'm
Yeah,
ready, but like and sometimes obviously being in a position where you're like I need a job now,
yeah,
but at the same time kind of knowing when you're ready and yeah, really tackling like really challenging yourself to tackle the hard problems and really like get that muscle memory up. And
yeah,
like you're saying about sort of newbie challenges on front end mentor, yeah, that's a starting point, that's not the
yeah,
finishing point. Like
yeah,
once you start getting up to the more complex ones
yeah,
and multi-page web applications like this kind of thing, then you're really in a good position
yeah,
to get there. But yeah, definitely don't rush and don't jump to those projects too early as well. We
yeah,
see a lot of people
yeah,
like
yeah,
diving straight in and getting themselves into a whole lot of trouble. So yeah, start
yeah.
small, step up.
I had somebody do that, and I was like, "Wait, hold on. Have you ever done this before?" And they're like, "No." And I was like, "Don't go to Guru right now. You may
Yeah.
think that you're ready for that." And I say, "Okay, hold on. Let's start with this one. Okay, let's start with this basic one and see how you do first. Okay, go do it." Took the 3 weeks, and I was like, "Okay." So they should
Yeah.
have taken you less than a week, but it took you 3 weeks. Okay, so you know where you're at, right? They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, so it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time." Another thing I want to bring up too as a mistake is um, like this sounds really hard because everybody wants to be a developer when they career switch over, or the reason why they want to go into the tech industry is they become a developer. But that's not always the case. Like you all also there's other roles in technology that you can get into.
Mm.
It's not always development, right? There's business analysts, there's data scientists, there's QA, right? Quality assurance. Those people are needed. Project management, right? There's other things in the tech industry you can get into. But I always also say this is if that's something you want to try, it, right? You don't know until you try it. And if it's difficult, then pivot. Like there's no problem pivoting to another role in tech, but there are so many roles in tech that you don't always just have to go down that single path of being a developer. You can still do some development on the side and whatnot, or you could go and be a quality assurance engineer right away, right? And then continue to develop and then become a software engineer later. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you have to like stick and continue to do that first role. No, it's a starting point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's so many roles with complementary skills. I know there's numerous people that I've seen coming from like product management into coding or coding into product management and UX design, UI design, all of these, like you say, QA testing. We've had many QA engineers coming into front end mentor to sort of start actually building and
Yeah.
getting into web development. And so yeah, there's different routes. Like web development isn't necessarily like the only route in. And once you're in, like there's possible opportunities to move around as well, for sure. Yeah, that's those are really good. Those are really good sort of like outlines of mistakes that you were saying. Have you got any more at all, or are those the key ones that you see?
I can say this is when you get that interview, prep and practice. You don't know how hard it is because you don't know what questions are given to you. So you prep and practice over and over again. Um, and I'm saying with yourself and with someone else. You can pay for practice interviews. You can ask your friend, your brother, sister, whatever, right? Give them some questions for them to ask you, and put it through like a interview cycle, right? Because when you go in unprepared, like Matt was saying earlier, we we know you're unprepared. We already know it. I will tell you this: if I interview you for a front end role, for a junior front end role, using React and whatever, right? I can tell within 30 seconds if you're fit for this role or not. Why and how? The keywords that you use, your preparation, and all of that. Like, I can ask you a simple question and I would know, like, okay, I have a feeling already that this person is probably not going to be the one. You may have
Yeah,
potential and that might outweigh the other candidates. But if I find a candidate that's very well prepared, that speaks well to the projects and all of that, it's really simple to find out, especially at a junior level. Like you know right away, like which ones stand out, which ones don't.
mm,
I used to do a lot of interviewing for juniors back when I was at the agency, and it was really easy to tell right away within a minute or so of, hey, this person is probably going to move forward, or no, it's okay. We're going to continue this process and see. Hopefully, it improves, right? But more so than not, within that first minute or so, like it doesn't improve because of the lack of preparation. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it is key, and it's definitely a point that bears sort of repeating again. So that's a really good one. Like an interview is a skill in its own right. So so practice, and just prep as much as you can.
Yeah.
Let's say that you do get the job, and we hope everyone watching does. What are your tips when once you're in the role and professional advancement,
Yeah.
making a good impression, this kind of thing?
Yeah. First thing I would say is that technology changes every single day, right? It's changing and it will be very difficult to get on top of the newest trends and all of that. I would say be aware of some of them, but you don't need to dive into them. The reason
Mhm.
why is because a lot of companies and projects you will work on, they're going to be on legacy frameworks, technologies, plugins, and all of that, right? Often, sometimes you'll find one that is like very cutting edge, and which is great, but oftentimes they're not. And you may use these like newest and greatest pieces of technology later or soon, but being aware of them is also great. One thing that you can do is like listen to podcasts like Compress FM, Syntax, or Front End Happy Hour. These podcasts like are always talking about technologies, things that are coming up, or Front End Happy Hour talks about like sometimes they do like management and like how to deal with burnout or things like several other topics, and that's really good too. You can read blogs like Spanish Magazine. I always do that. But the
Yeah.
thing I do most nowadays is I follow people on LinkedIn and X or Twitter that are in the industry or at our companies, or individuals that are project managers or engineers at those companies, and they'll post updates, and that's always nice to know and hear of things that are coming out and things that are happening. Um, and then like the hard reality is that once you break into tech, that is the easy part. I know for some it's been very difficult and it's going to continue to be difficult, but the easy part, I say the easy part because staying up to date and improving your technology skills, that's the difficult part. Is
Mm.
when I talked about passion earlier, that is what's going to take you further. If you go into this and you're like, oh, at 9 to 5, I'm done, you're stuck at the 9 to 5, right? But if you have that passion, you're going to listen to these podcasts, you're going to research more, you're going to dive in, you're going to build side projects and all that stuff, right? And the more that you build, the more you fail, the more you learn, right? It's a constant process. At work, you might just get one task for a whole week and that's all you do. But after hours, you're researching, do all this other stuff that you're not doing at work, and you can jump around and figure stuff out and start building other things that you cannot do at work. Because if you're stuck on a WordPress project, but you want to build a React project and you can't at work, right? You don't have the luxury to do that. But
Yeah.
outside of work, you can do whatever you want. You can build with Vue, Svelte, whatever technology stack you want to. And that then will give you that experience and that passion. If you don't have that, like, I will be honest too, like working as a developer is stressful and draining. But if you have that passion, that stress and all of that will be mitigated. It will still be there, but after hours, you'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna go build my side project because I want to,
Yeah.
and that will continue to help you excel and learn more, because that it's all about that is how do you get to the next level? You get to the next level by learning and understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, like little side projects. I mean, I remember when I started dev coding. Like I only started learning to code. I was a career switcher in my late 20s, so I was like 28 years old, and I was like, I've got a lot of catching up to do. And like I was coding before work, coding
Yeah,
after work, like doing as much as I can. But
yeah,
it's that fine balance with burnout, and also like
yeah,
and like if you need a rest, take a rest, like this kind of thing. But it's not an easy career to get into. It's something that you have to have passion for. You have to have a real interest in to really take you up to that next level. That was one of the reasons why, and that's the same in any industry, really. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I stopped being a personal trainer, because I like pizza and I like a beer a bit too much, like every now and then. So it's like I was
yeah,
never gonna get to the absolute top of that industry. But then when I got to learn about coding, it was like, actually I've got a real passion for this, whereas it's been all of my
yeah.
life. And but it is that sort of little bit of a balance between kind of burnout and pushing
Yep.
yourself forward. And hopefully, if you're at a good company, you'll have good professional development budget. You'll have time
Yeah.
carved out, especially in junior roles. You're going to be, a lot of the time is going to be spent learning the tech stack and
Mhm.
really like that the company is in, and really going deep into that. For sure. Nice, amazing. Well, are there any little tips from the top that you want to give before we wrap up, Shashi?
Yeah. Some advice I would say is don't quit. Like whatever you do, um, carry forward with it. It doesn't mean that you have to stick with being a developer. Like I said earlier, you can pivot, right? Um, if you want a better situation for yourself and your family, then you're gonna have to work really hard for it.
Yeah.
It is very difficult, and but then when you achieve that goal, it is going to be the best feeling ever. I've had an individual. I'm going to end with this story. He had applied to, I think he said like 1,000 jobs, right? Like he bulk applied without networking, like that question earlier. Zero callbacks, zero interviews, right? And I put out a tweet out, said, "Hey, anybody willing to have myself and my friend review your project on in our Discord?" And he said, "Yeah, like you guys can review my project." And we reviewed it, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is really good." Like, I mean, the aesthetically, it was not good, but the code was really good. It was complex. It had authentication. It was interactive with the database. It had user interaction. It had so many things that we were like, "Wow, this is a pretty full fledged application." And then we said, like, "Wait, do you have a job yet?" And then he said, "No. Like, I've applied so many times. I have no opportunities right now." His resume and his portfolio was not good. And we're like, that's why you haven't got anything. You didn't optimize your resume, number one. Your portfolio, within 2 seconds, I already said no. you know, and that's like, it's not saying that I'm like the stopgap, but it's like, it's an industry standard. You have to have a aesthetically pleasing portfolio. Resumes have
Yeah.
to stand out somehow, right? With experience, or if you're a junior, it has to stand out some way, somehow, with design or construction, and all that. And nobody got to his project. Nobody, right? But because we were willing to like review somebody's project, we got into it. And once we did that, then I was able to like build like my Discord. We have a little project, and we were able to see this person flourish. Like he stood out. He led on his own, like a natural leader. Came
Mhm.
out, talked about technologies like he knew it very well. I was like, wow, like how are you not? How do you not have a job? You speak better than a lot of juniors that I've talked to about certain technologies and things that are integrated and stuff like that. And so what happened was the individual that was helping me review the project hired him because he was so good. Like it was like interviewing him without interviewing him. And I always say that. How can you get to that point where someone can see what you're doing because you're built in public, or you're a part of something that people can see your work without interviewing you? It gives you a better chance to get hired, right? So his risk was really high because his quality of work, we didn't get these projects yet. But once we did, it started to lower down. And once this project happened and we saw how much he stood up and how he can articulate
Mm.
himself with technologies, it started to go down. And that risk became like, this is low risk, this is high reward, you know? And so
Yeah.
those are the individuals that we cannot find unless if we can see something out of you. I see a lot of people, stream on Twitch right now, building in public. I see a lot of people building in public on X. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. I have lots of stories. Another story.
Go
Somebody
for it.
that just got a job, that career switched. She was designing and developing, but at first she switched over to doing like front end development, and I saw her work, and she put out this design. I was like, hey, have you considered designing as well, or just going to UI design? And she was like, no, I haven't, but some people have told me that. And then from that moment on, she took a step back and said, you know what? Like, how come this person, Shashi, is messaging me, telling me that I should go design? Maybe that's saying something. So she
Mm.
switched to do focus more on design while still doing some development. She was able to, and I told her, hey, you need to also build in public and continue sharing because it's going to make a difference. At that point, she probably had what, like 10 likes or so. And as she started to build and build and build and build in public, nowadays when she posts things up, it's like 1,000 likes or so. And the reason why I say that is because by doing that, an individual that owns a company reached out to her to do a contract work. And this past Monday, she was offered a full time job with that individual. And this is what she told me. That CEO had been lurking at her profile, viewing every post that she posts, and
Wow.
he really liked her designs. And then because she could develop too, he hired her to do both. And she, when I talked to her on a one-on-one, she personally thanked me because I was able to identify that for her, because she was going down the development path like 100%, right? Until I
Mhm.
said, "Hey, hold on here, like you should probably design too, or focus more on design." And so by doing that, it was able to give her that opportunity to get this full-time job. Doesn't mean that she's going to stop there. She could pivot to design or development now, but it changed her life. And she said that as well. These two individuals said that um, that once all that hard work paid off, the day that they were able to start full time, it changed everything for them. And I want that for everybody here too that's trying to break into tech. Is I know the journey is hard, and it might be a longer journey than you anticipated, but if you stick with it, you find the right people to help you, a good mentor or a good community to be a part of, and ingrain yourself in that and be consistent, you will eventually find something that can change your life.
Yeah, and those are some incredible stories. You just yeah, just sharing things, you just increase the surface area of luck, don't you?
Yeah.
And yeah, those are brilliant stories. Great stories to end on as well. Thank you so much, Shashi, for taking the time out to have a chat with us, give some amazing advice, might I say, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know anytime. And Matt and Friend and Mentor, thank you for having me on here. I hope I was able to provide some valuable advice, and hopefully people can take it and run with it.
Absolutely amazing advice, and looking forward to the next one. All right. Hope everyone's got a lot of value from this. See you again soon. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.